You got to understand, Shedeur Sanders needs to be somewhere right now worried about getting his receivers ready. He ain't worried about none of that, bro. He got an opportunity right now to be a starting quarterback. He has an opportunity. He worried about Deshaun Watson. He worried about what they doing. He worried about learning the playbook. Like the Mendoza thing, look, life don't be fair. If you go to a job or you doing a job interview, Mendoza don't have to throw. You know why he don't got to throw? Because the Raiders already told him they going to draft
He's an overwhelming #1 draft pick. Why would he throw?
They didn't already told him.
Shedeur wasn't in that spot.
GBush exposed Jay Crawford badly, made him admit why he hates Shedeur Sanders. But what if I told you it wasn't just hate? What if the reason behind all the negativity wasn't about football at all, but ratings, clicks, and a media machine that thrives on controversy? In early episodes of UCSS, Cleveland media personalities like Jay Crawford and others repeatedly dissected Shedeur Sanders, not just on performance, not just on draft questions, but with a strange, consistent intent to drag his name back into conversation over and over again. Even after the season ended, even when more current stories were happening around the Browns, and on that very show, Jay Crawford didn't just throw shade. He admitted why these narratives keep coming back, and that admission is the core reason this video exists. He said it plainly: we talk about things that will maximize our audience. That's not a sports critique, that's media strategy. He laid bare on record that much of the negativity directed at Shedeur wasn't a deeply held belief about the player's talent. It was a tactic, a hook to get viewers to click. That's how they grow shows. That's how they generate engagement. And in sports media today, that's all that really matters. Is that betrayal? Is that hypocrisy? Or is it just business? We're about to unpack all of it. And more importantly, we're going to look at the real human cost behind it. Before any of the controversy ever began, there was a story of promise. Shedeur Sanders entered the 2025 NFL Draft with enormous buzz surrounding his name, a highly productive college quarterback with eye-popping numbers and a legacy tied to one of football's most iconic figures, Hall of Famer Deion Sanders. Expectations were through the roof. Many draft analysts had him projected as an early pick, possibly as high as the first or second round. ESPN draft boards showed him moving in that direction.
Shedeur is a victim of his last name. A lot of people want to say, oh, he's a product of his last name. No, I don't believe that. Because in the NFL, I don't care what your last name is. NFL is all, look, you get what you earn. Yep. It is a meritocracy. He may have gotten a chance here or there or turned heads here or there because of his last name. But I think his last name has worked against him since he went to Colorado. And here's why. Everybody wants to say, oh, he's just there because he's Deion's kid. Well, that has hindered him in the NFL process.
Some described his interview performance with teams as underwhelming, or even bordering on lackluster. Others questioned his attitude, work ethic, and whether his success in college would translate to the NFL. All of that culminated in what became one of the most remarkable draft slides in recent memory. A quarterback once talked about as a possible top 5 pick, falling all the way to the 5th round before the Browns finally selected him 144th overall. Analysts and fans around the league were stunned. What had gone wrong? Was it the tape, the interviews, his character? Was it something deeper, perhaps tied to his family? And once that slide became a story, the narrative exploded, not just in NFL circles, but in social media, talk shows, and podcasts. Every angle was dissected. Every critic had something to say, and this was where the roasting began. This is where the line between sports analysis and media entertainment starts to blur. In the aftermath of the draft, many shows, especially in Cleveland media circles, didn't let go of the Sanders storyline. When the Browns drafted other quarterbacks, veteran signings, draft picks, and QB competition updates, somehow all roads still led back to Shedeur. Every time. People began to notice that this was not random coverage, it was patterned. There was an almost disproportionate focus on dissecting every throw, every interview clip, and even personal quirks like how he walks or ties his shoes. It was no longer just about football, it was feeding narrative. Fans even took to platforms like Reddit to complain. One popular thread lamented how sports networks kept him as the central draft storyline, even overshadowing other players or more consequential picks, simply because players like Shedeur generate views.
Why did we talk about him a million times during the lead up to the NFL draft?
He's the most popular
because
athlete
he's a lightning rod.
Yes.
We're in the business of clicks. We want people to watch us. We're not here so no one watches. We're here because we want to maximize our audience. We found out very early on, how do you maximize your audience? Well, you talk about things that your audience wants to listen to.
Yeah.
What was that? It didn't take us long to figure it out. It's not rocket science. Shedeur. That's why we break down how he walks. Is he pigeon-toed?
Some users said ESPN and other outlets acted as if the entire draft was all about Sanders, no matter how many picks passed or how many other stories emerged. That's where the real issue begins to take shape. Analysis turns into content bait. And in the attention economy we live in, stories aren't measured by importance, they're measured by engagement. That's the media landscape in 2026. And that's the environment in which players like Shedeur Sanders find themselves judged not just on the field, but in public imagination. Most sports commentary is opinion, that's expected. But when a media personality admits why they frame a narrative a certain way, that's rare. On a viral episode of UCSS, Jay Crawford didn't just voice his stance on Shedeur Sanders, he revealed something deeper. Right there on the mic, he laid out what many viewers had suspected, but no one had said openly. The negativity in much of the coverage wasn't rooted in a firm belief about Sanders' ability. It was about generating engagement. He explained that when producers and hosts are trying to draw in audiences, they tend toward topics that elicit strong reactions, things that get people talking, and he identified Shedeur Sanders as one of those surefire topics because people react to his name, his legacy, and the drama surrounding his story. He's a lightning rod, Crawford said. You want people to watch you, so you talk about what they care about. Now ask yourself, how many times have analysts on various shows circled back to Sanders even when other stories should have taken precedence? How often have they dragged up the same criticisms, frame after frame, not because they were new insights, but because they spark conversation? That's not analysis, that's strategy. No wonder fans started calling these shows clickbait machines, because that's exactly what they had become. When Jay's comments gained circulation beyond the original broadcast, people reacted, and they reacted hard. Some fans celebrated the honesty. They claimed his admission proved that media manipulation was real, and that players like Shedeur, who already face scrutiny for their background or draft story, are easy targets for engagement-hungry platforms. Others saw hypocrisy, critics accusing him of hypocrisy for being part of the same system that broadcasts those narratives while still confessing to benefiting from them. Social platforms became battlegrounds. Some fans argued the whole draft slide conversation was unfair, saying much of the negativity he received was really about people's opinions of his father, not him. Then there were the counter-opinions. Many pointed to scouting reports that highlighted legitimate draft concerns: lack of elite arm strength, holding onto the ball too long, and shaky pre-draft interviews. They said that if fans want to defend him, fine. But that doesn't mean critics are always chasing clicks. Sometimes they're reflecting real evaluation reports. Thousands of comments, tweets, and Reddit threads later, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about a quarterback. This was about how fans perceive media motives in the era of endless content. And the coverage of Shedeur became the symbol of that debate. Putting the media drama aside, we must ask an honest question. What is Shedeur Sanders on the football field? Draft hype doesn't make a quarterback, production does. And in college, Sanders showed both brilliance and areas of concern. Some scouts noted his accuracy and big play moments. Others highlighted red flags: lack of elite arm talent, inconsistent decision-making, and a tendency to take too many sacks. Traits that do matter in NFL projection. Was Jay Crawford wrong to openly admit the media's motives? Is Shedeur Sanders being unfairly criticized, or is this just part of the business of sports analysis? Drop your thoughts, because this story isn't going away just yet. Subscribe for more deep dives, drama, and real talk behind the headlines.